Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation to bring you another faction-focused video on the Necrons. Again, in my attempts to try to get every data sheet on this channel at least one time, both for a review and on a battle report, today we're going at the Ghost Ark. The Ghost Ark is a unit that I do not typically use, and I will go over the many reasons why, but simply the most important reason and biggest takeaway to why I don't use this thing is I'm mad at Games Workshop with it. Why is it still not open topped? You can literally see the skeletons inside. And I know someone's going to say, well, they're strapped in and charging and powered down, and my phone can charge and still function. Why can't they charge and shoot out of it? For the point costs and how it would all build out, it wouldn't be that crazy. It'd be an awesome little pirate ship gunboat. So I'm mad at it. I'm mad at that factor. And I find it difficult for the points to function into with what it does. However, without using it as a transport, this thing is an insane battery for most Necron armies that are warrior heavy. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. Turn on the bell for notifications, get notified on all the content that we bring you here on the channel. With this video, this will be the last one that I make before my army introduction for mine and Lane's Halloween special, spectacular, spooktacular. We'll get to the name for it later, but we are doing a special zombies versus skeletons matchup. Where in this matchup, the Poxwalkers will actually be given battle line for army creation purposes because we want Lane to be able to bring 120 Poxwalkers, of course. So he's going to bring the zombies, and I'm going to be bringing skeletons. And not only am I bringing skeletons, but I am bringing a list that is super durable, super necromancy, super resurrecting. The dead will be walking with this list. And one of those key elements is our showcase unit for today, the Ghost Ark. So let's jump over into the Ghost Ark stats, and we can talk about all the things that you can do with this transport that is more of just a gunboat battery all around. So the Ghost Ark has a 10-inch move. It also has fly. So at least with the 10-inch, there is terrain that it can traverse over, being that it has a fast enough move, and can possibly pop up and down buildings if necessary. 10-inch move is still pretty decent just for getting across the board. Toughness 9, 3 up save, 14 wounds, leadership 7, OC 3, and it also has a 4 up invulnerable save. So all around, this thing does have some good durability. Not as insane of durability as it had last edition with the inbuilt transhuman style effect of ignoring the 4 up, ignoring any to wound roll that was better than a 4 up. But now it still has its 4 up invuln, and it's not 150, 145 expensive. It comes in at only 125 points. Not only are you getting what this unit does as far as abilities, but this thing really does check all 3 boxes for a good unit. It has a good stat line. It has a decent gun profile. Its point cost is slotted well for its role, and its ability is really strong if you are running bricks of warriors. Without the warrior bricks, this thing is unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. And we'll get to that in a minute. First, let's jump over into its weapon profile. Because this is pretty cool. It has a gauze flare array, which is lethal hits, rapid fire 5, 24-inch range, 5 shots, ballistic skill 3, strength 4, AP 0, 1 damage. So these are gauze flares with lethal hits, as most of the gauze weapons have, with a rapid fire of 5 on the 5 shots to be able to give it 10 shots if you are within 12 inches. Now, you're not just getting one of these, you actually get 2 of these. So at long range, 24 inches long range, you have 10 shots. But get this thing to close into 12 inches, and you're looking at putting down 20 shots with this thing just by itself. That's pretty decent. The lethal hits, you're going to pop a couple of them. No AP, okay. It's still good to spray into units. It's viable. It's not a storm bolter on a Rhino. And now, granted, the Rhino's transport option is a lot stronger than the Ghost Arks. Simply, and we'll get over into that in a minute. But important thing is we need to talk about the abilities, because I keep trailing off into what this thing can do, because it's a very hard with transports like this And with some of the battery tech that Necrons have, this is a difficult unit to talk about and explain why these things are actually good. Because initially you look at it and go, this is a 125 point tank that has a tank profile, medium gun. So what are we getting out of this? What is this thing doing? And that's where it comes really into the abilities. So, as always, it has reanimation protocols, as most Necron units do. It also has a deadly demise of D3, because it is a vehicle, and it is a repair barge. Now, once per phase, comma, just after an enemy unit finishes making its attacks, comma, if only one friendly Necron warrior unit with his units within 3 inches of this model lost one or more models as a result of those attacks, comma, this model can use this ability. Now, the reason I'm emphasizing where the commas are is because this is once per phase, this model, which means that multiple Ghost Arks can in fact use this ability multiple times. And there is a second caveat that we'll get to in a minute that assists to this being true. If it does, select one of those Necron warrior units and activates reanimation protocol. The same Necron warrior unit cannot be selected for his ability more than once each phase, alluding to the fact that this in fact can be used more than once in a phase. So multiple Ghost Arks can cover multiple things. So you take one Ghost Ark for, I think one Ghost Ark per 20 warriors is probably a good place to be. Eventually the warriors will start moving across the table and they're not really necessarily going to be in good range. It is very easy to string warriors and spread them out where they're able to both get in range of the Ghost Ark. And on top of this, this does not mean you cannot use the stratagem then on the warriors. So a squad of warriors, let's go with a hypothetical situation, just talk about how this rolls out. Most of our armies, we're going to have a reanimator in there too. So having plus D3 on top of this is disgusting. Your opponent hits you, kills 14 warriors. You get your D6 back. You get your D3 on the reanimator because you triggered the Ghost Ark. Then they hit you again. Assuming you have a character in there, let's say you get 7 back on that first one. You lost 14, you gained 7. So all in all, you're looking at what did I say? 7, 6, 13 now you have left. Okay. So now they hit you again and they take that 7 away and you put it right back. You're back at 13. Then your turn comes. You roll that D6 and again you get 7. Bam, you're right back at full strength. You're at 20. All because of the Ghost Ark being able to give you that to dig deeper and go, oh, you're going to hit me? Okay, I'm going to trigger the Ghost Ark. Oh, you're not done? You're going to hit me again? I'm going to spend a command point. Okay, now you're done. Turn's over. I'm going to reanimate anyways. And this just turns these into invincible undying bricks where your opponent needs to possess enough firepower to take the 20-man warrior squad out in one hit from one unit. Now, there is units out there that can do that. And we have to be aware of those and have to realize those. Having Feel No Pain or 4-up Invuln, by preference, Feel No Pain, is a strong, strong way to get around not losing everybody. And once that one shot that really hits them hard hits them, most armies are not going to have a second wave to then dedicate into that to do it again to be able to keep you on that attrition. Some might. Some might. Obliterators are very nasty, and there's many other shooting units in the game that could put that down, as Lane has shown, can attest with his Death Watch and his kill teams. So there is that possibility that you could run into that, where they could hit you really hard and rip them completely off the table. But in most scenarios with that Feel No Pain, you're going to be able to keep a couple of them alive, reanimate to a big enough spot where when they hit you again, you can reanimate off the strat. And the Ghost Ark allows you to play into that to keep these units alive. However, in doing so, you are investing quite a bit of points. Now, although the Ghost Ark is only 125 points, it is a rather long model, which means that it's going to be difficult to hide it. That with the higher toughness, the T9, and the 4-up Invuln, and 14 wounds, it means that your opponent can't oops las cannon and take it down. It's going to be able to survive as long as it's not right out in the middle getting hit by some strong unit, or your opponent doesn't bring something out of reserve that's strong anti-tank unit to remove it from the field. Yeah, out of reserve is a possible option. And that might be the reason of talking about taking a second Ghost Ark. But then at that point, now you're dedicating 250 points to try to get this ability to go off one time. In most scenarios, I would say take the one. Take the one this way. If your opponent does dedicate that heavy anti-tank in there, you can revamp your strategy around that instead of dedicating so much into it. Because we're not just talking about the Ghost Ark. We're then talking about the 20-man warrior brick that needs to be taken with them. Now, warriors drop to roughly 11 points per model, meaning that we're getting a 20-man for 220 points. But the 20-man warrior squad for 220 points, plus the Ghost Ark at 125 points, is already right there, putting us at 345 points. Now, what about the character? You slap a character in there, that's going to put you at that 400-point break. And I apologize if I accidentally messed any of my math up there, but I'm pretty sure I got all those numbers right. And you get the gist of it. Now we're getting close to 400 points. Now we're starting to creep up on a quarter of our army's points in a Ghost Ark and one squad of Necron warriors, especially if you're taking two characters, one being a noble and one being a technomancer. Now we can get away with just taking the techno if you don't want the res orb. And I could see definitely some argument's sake about not taking the resurrection orb, because just being able to res in your opponent's command phase may not be sturdy enough over the feel no pain and just say, well, you're not killing the model. So there could be some argument there to save the point to get it at about 400. But if you want the res orb, now you're getting pushing like 450, 460, just shy of 500. That's one squad. Now we're going to do it again. Okay, so now we're going to put another 220 points in there, plus character, and you're looking at just barely into the 300 columns. Okay, so now we're getting 700, maybe closer to 800 points. And once again, now we're creeping up on the next tier, which is the 50% of our army points. We have 1,200 points left to spend. And we've put 2 warrior squads and 1 Ghost Ark in that army. How much more are you going to have to dedicate to non-killing, non-removal units in your army? We have Ophidians. We have some very strong choices to be able to play the game. However, this is a phalanx and a brick that can march on objectives and continue marching on objectives, which is something I'm going to be trying to do in Lane and Mine's game this weekend. So the Ghost Ark is an excellent tank. It really is a cool battery. It does have a transport capacity. I didn't talk about this. It has a transport capacity to be able, it's changed up a little bit now. It's 10 in 1 character. So now at least you can get the character in there. And it would be really cool to take like a Plasmancer and attach him to the 10-man squad with Gauze Reapers and have them get out of it and rapid fire and crit on 5s, or a Chronomancer to be able to disembark from the vehicle, shoot, and then move on to an objective. There's definitely some cool tech that it's good that we can at least put a character in there to make it viable. But when you take a 110-point warrior squad and you put it inside a 125-point vehicle, you now have 235 points of your army dedicated to a brick. You know what else costs 235 points or close to it? A Grey Knight's Land Raider at 240 points with 4 las cannons that can shoot from long range and also transport units as well. Those units can't shoot out. Well, they can't from the Ghost Ark either. And that is so upsetting. One of the things, there was an addition where it had open topped. And open topped allowed you to shoot units inside to the out. And it's been really upsetting that when we got firing deck, this was not a unit that got a firing deck. It would have been really cool, you know, having a 10-man squad with Gauze Flayers inside of it to give you an additional 10 Gauze Flayers on top of the Gauze Flayer array. So now you get within 12 inches and you're putting down 40 shots of gauze off this tank. That would have been so cool, and it would have made this thing have another layer that would make opponent question, like, okay, if I don't take that down, that's a lot of dice. That's a lot of dice to come in there. And with things like the Sovereign being able to give this thing 2s to hit, really would have been cool. So that's disappointing, but enough. Not talking about the things you can't do. Let's go back to the things you can do. This thing is long. This thing can block movement. this thing can charge, and with 14 wounds and a 4-up invuln, it can tie silly things up late in the game when you just need to march. This is something that can help you continue to push your march and push on objectives. It is objective control 3. So if it's something that late in the game needs to hang back and sit on an objective, it can. And it's not simple to remove. Anti-tank weapons can do it, but it's not simple to remove. So all around, the Ghost Ark is a great, great model, and it is a great unit. The only thing is you are going to have to, I mean, it's right in its name, you have to take warriors with it. So the question comes into, when you're doing your list design, and we go back to the initial part of it of what we were spending, we got up to like 800 points for Ghost Arks, roughly around there. And there's argument sakes both ways. You could probably chop it and get it down to 700. You might hit it even harder and go to 900, and that's how you feel that way. You know, we didn't even talk about putting crypt thralls in there. So if you take that and you have that 800 point chunk, what is that 800 point chunk's role going to be in your army? Now, fortunately, that isn't a question of like, oh, you can't do it. It's a question of, what do you want it to do? Do you want to put the veil on there so that one of the squads can teleport away and you move up another and kind of sort of converge in the middle, with having the one squad maybe go onto a flank or a weaker objective and converge together, and then move in there and just start bringing that squad back that's been hiding on that objective and holding it on its D3+3 reanimations? That's a possibility. Do you want to just march them up the field with the power of the reanimator and orbs and just go right up the middle and say, you're not going to take, this is not going to die, and try and make them test that? That's an option too. And then with that, what other units do you want to run? If you're trying to, if you slap Ophidians in there, one squad of Ophidians looks good. 2 squads of Ophidians, now you're starting to spend too much on all your objective control and your secondary control, and you might want to start looking into some damage output and some of the damage output units, because the damage output units are going to need to double, and they're going to need to do work into other things. Your warriors are not going to score you behind enemy lines, and it is very difficult to use them for engage on all fronts. It's a big brick, big brick. Ghost Ark can do well for engage because it's smaller, but the warriors, not so much. So warriors on secondaries are going to struggle, except for the ones that cause taking middle objectives or maybe completing an objective at center field. They're not going to do much for secondaries. They're going to be playing in your primary game. Ophidians, very good at secondaries. However, if you get to the past the 2 column and you start, like, I guess 2 would be a kind of a sweet spot because these guys are able to bounce around. I think 1, mostly because you do still have the Ghost Ark that in most scenarios is not really even going to shoot, so it can complete actions and do stuff in that same ways. And whatever else that you have in there that's damage dealing that may not have a target that round. So at that point, you look into and you start to figure out what is it you want to do damage with. And you have a wide variety of choices, which is why it's kind of a really good core. You have your Monolith. Monolith synergizes well with it. You have your Doomstalkers, your Annihilation Barges. You have all those other options that you can bring to the table. And there's a lot of good options. And I definitely recommend that if this is a core mechanic that you want to use more, don't be afraid to push heavy into damage and let this thing just be your board control. Be difficult, be a pain in the butt to take out. That's my recommendation into it. It's definitely going to be fun, and I am looking forward to running it. Now, I'm not taking my own advice because I will be bringing 2 Ghost Arks. But at the same time, too, once I get the list out here on the table and I can preview it, I have 100 warriors in the unit. The army. So I do have coverage for 2 Ghost Arks in this matchup against the Death Guard and the zombies. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. I look forward to getting the army on the channel and playing this skeleton reanimating horde here soon. And yeah, I'll be getting that video out here very soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.